2-minute speech in there.
All right, so minute 37. All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 7th Ordinary Council meeting for 2025. I want to commence by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet, the Butchla people, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. We have no apologies or leave of absence. Everyone's here today. The opening prayer. Let us pray together, each of us according to our individual beliefs. Grant to this council wisdom, understanding, and sincerity of purpose for the good governance of the community. Item 3, disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest? 4, mayoral minutes. Item 4.1, the LGAQ motion, state responsibility for bike lane infrastructure. This is supplementary agenda, page 416. This reads that council endorse the following as a motion to submit to the Local Government Association of Queensland as a conference motion, that LGAQ call upon the Queensland Department of Transport and Main Roads to take full responsibility for the funding, construction, and ongoing maintenance of dedicated bike lanes or active transport corridors on all state-controlled roads that pass through urban, residential, and commercial areas. This is about recognizing that a lot of the time with our state government roads through urban areas where there should be a bike lane or a footpath, there isn't unless they speak to council and we fund it. So this motion is calling on the state government to fund that, to recognise that streets and passageways and connections should not just be about cars and buses and trucks. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Chapman?
Mr Mayor, I actually support this motion. This is it's all about livability for our people in our communities and about so people can get from A to B, and I will be supporting this motion.
Any further speakers? Councillor O'Keefe?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll be supporting this motion. It recognises the importance of multimodal transportation systems, and I think it's worthy of adding.
Further speakers? No. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 4.2, a further mayoral minute. This reads that a report be provided on the most effective and efficient way to connect West Spring Way with the Mary to Bay Rail Trail. And this arose out of a community meeting that Councillor Chapman and I had last week?
Yes.
Yeah, last week with quite a few members, perhaps 100, 120 of residents of Springs Estate on Madsen Road. That whole area towards the sports precinct, which has developed so quickly, does not actually have a safe pedestrian or bikeway to actually get into town. Certainly won't be safe going up Main Street on the other side, and Madsen Road is not safe. The quickest and easiest way that we can see would be to connect West Spring Way to the Harvey Bay Rail Trail. Councillor Chapman and I have both attempted to walk through there, and there will be difficulties. There is something of a waterway through there, but as I understand it, we own the land. And I mentioned the director, Naidu, was there at the meeting too. And so we've discussed this. If this is perhaps a better outcome than trying to put a footpath along Madsen Road. Did you want to speak?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, we have been looking at options, Mr. Mayor, through that West Spring connection to the rail trail. So obviously, as you mentioned, that there are some challenges there. We are currently investigating those options. But yeah, I think this will reinforce bringing that update back to council. Thank you for the progress.
Yeah. And I want to thank Councillor Chapman for the way he's raised this. This is a very large community that did not exist 7 or 8 years ago. That was Canefield, where once we had cane growing, we now have hundreds and hundreds, if not a few thousand, people living at the Springs very, very soon. And it is quite remarkable that there is not a footpath connection into town. We saw a very serious accident. People are trying to go up there, and it is dangerous going up the safest route. Councillor Chapman?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I also will speak for this motion. This has been of concern ever since that Springs area over on the western side of Nicobar there. It's actually taken off, and it's one of the fastest growing areas for a long time. But we've got the sports precinct out in that area, and the community have got to realise that it all costs money to build roads and build infrastructure, and it takes time to design. but it's also we've got to acquire the land and we've got a developer on the top side. Council have got to work with that developer to get the right levels to where the footpath is going to be to suit their development. So I'd just like to say to the residents, I think that if we head towards the west into Springs West, and as our officers are looking at trying to put a pathway onto the rail trail, this will help the people of latitude 25, the Springs new development that's going in, and also the Springs residential area. And it will happen, but it's with the sports precinct. It will be great to see connectivity from the hospital area right through. And we are now seeing a footpath being built up to Makey Drive on Madsen Road. So if things are in progress to move that way, we have acquired the land. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I support this active travel initiative, and just note that that it aligns with our strategic goals of improving livability and strategic growth. It cannot be a situation that people are entirely dependent on a motor vehicle to get from that suburb to basically anywhere. So I strongly support this initiative, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Mayoral Minute 4.3. This reads, and I've slightly changed it on advice from the CEO to be about a report, that Council be provided with a report that investigates possible options for better utilisation of the flood buyback properties adjacent to Prickett Aquatic Park, noting flooding and other planning issues so that the whole site can better serve the community as parklands. Following the buyback that we did in conjunction with the state and federal governments, we now own 5.3 hectares of land beside the river there, which is really underutilized. It is perfect for a riverside park. I'll just put up the map that we've created. And I've met on site with our executive manager. As you can see, the red is the new land, and the green is the existing Prickett Aquatic Park. Combining the two will actually create a park in that area that can be, that is needed in that area, that much better takes in the riverside aspect of that land, where we have scarce riverside parkland that is suitable. So this would provide a report to better utilize that land, which we've now held. And for at least a year, it's been fully demolished, the properties that were on it. And now we can look to how we can better incorporate it into the park and make something actually very special there. In my consultation with staff, obviously we want to not embellish it very much. It is by its nature flood prone. That's why we own it. It doesn't need audio-visual stuff like we have in Queen's Park that we had. It doesn't need a lot of fancy stuff like exercise equipment. It is perfectly situated as a natural parkland where, with actually pretty good tree plantings already, some of the people's backyards, which we now own through the buyback thing, had very substantial plantings. There are bunya pines there, mango trees, and other substantial plantings. So it is perfect for walking trails and other community use. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Chapman?
Mr. Mayor, just I see that you asked for a report here. I'd just like to say it'd be great to get the school children involved in putting something like that out to the Maryborough schools and getting some feedback and what they can actually help with in their education.
Yeah, because it's exciting. It's a blank slate. Councillor Truscott?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think you've covered off everything on it really, but just to express my verbal support of it, I think it's a great idea, and one other thought was perhaps even for future community tree planting events as well, because if we can't build in there, trees would be a great option as well. So I fully support this and look forward to what the report has to say.
Any further speakers? Councillor O'Keefe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I note that you're asking for options for better utilisation. In my mind, I see it in its present state as looking largely like a nature reserve, worth preserving. And so, yeah, I support the resolution.
Any further speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 5.1, the confirmation of minutes of meeting. On advice and reflection of the minutes, I'm moving a slight amendment that council amend the minutes of ordinary meeting number 16/25 held 30 June 2025 as follows. Update the wording from endorse to adopt at item 16.1.2, the regulatory services fees and charges amendment to clearly communicate the council's intended action for future reference and interpretation, and to confirm the minutes of the ordinary meeting number 26 held 30th of June. Is there a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Phil Truscott. Perhaps I'll ask the CEO to just outline for everyone's benefit the difference between note, endorse and adopt, and how our intention at the time was actually to adopt.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll take responsibility for the incorrect wording in the minutes. I didn't pick it up when I read the.
Can I just say, it's not necessarily when you say it's a minute, it is what we actually passed.
Yes,
in the resolution.
Yeah. I didn't pick it up when I reviewed the agenda and the recommendation. And it is a it's a nuanced matter. There is a subtle difference between endorse and adopt. Adopt means that you fully embrace and accept, and endorse means that you favour. So we need to be very clear, particularly with respect to things like fees and charges, that the council's intention is to adopt. I believe it was the intention of the council meeting to adopt the fees and charges. I believe that's what you were looking to do. I do not want to be in a position where somewhere down the track we are legally challenged about a fee or a charge, and we have several thousand of them, a fee or a charge, because we haven't adopted, we've only endorsed.
And can I just double check that I know I've just moved this, but minutes are normally a reflection of what actually happened, and what actually happened is we moved that we.
I believe that in the council's minds, and that's why I'm asking, that's why I'm suggesting that it would need a resolution of council in the council's mind.
Yeah, I just wonder if the resolution is to change the minutes or to actually read it and actually adopt.
Well, the question is to councillors, if they believe that they were adopting the fees and charges, change the minutes. If they believe that they were just favouring a change, but not actually enacting a change.
I just wonder if on reflection, if this is actually right to do this like this.
We took legal advice
on
this matter, I believe. We've taken legal advice on this. And this is the.
Would it not be easier just to move it again? To rescind it and, okay. If we got legal advice, that is the best way.
To rescind a motion requires a procedural process to go through with certain amount of notice. From our legal advice, this is the correct way to deal with it.
Okay, and I understand. And so to clearly communicate the council's intended action. I think just for the sake of completeness, maybe it should say noting that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So there was audio of that meeting. My recollection is that the word adopt was used. Yeah. So it may have been written down as endorse, but maybe.
I can't confirm. Yeah.
Which would mean that it was just an editing.
Yeah, sorry.
Sure. In any case, I believe this is the cleanest,
the wording where we
simplest
say
way to
communicate intended. Yeah, sorry, Councillor Truscott.
I think the way that the CEO has worded that, like endorse means favour and adopt means go ahead, is very well done and very clear as to what we're going to do. I think that's good. Yep.
Councillor Govers?
Yeah, I'm just wondering how I vote on this because I wasn't at the last meeting.
You can still vote.
I can still vote on it? Okay, thank you.
So in terms of the issue I've raised, you're saying that sort of on legal advice that by saying to clearly communicate the council's intended action for future reference and interpretation, well, because we're essentially changing the word of a resolution that was passed.
Yeah.
Yes. And the council can make grammatical changes, and I see it as a grammatical change to more accurately reflect the decision of council.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Any further, so who was the seconder for that? Me. Yeah, Councillor Truscott, yep. Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion all in favour. Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 6.1, the open resolutions register for July, pages 20 to 29. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Byrne, second Councillor Farage. Any speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 7.1, community presentations. CEO.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to present my verbal report on community presentations today. Today we heard from two members of the community. The first person was Mr Paul Toomey, who raised concerns in relation to vegetation management on the Esplanade in the vicinity of Halco Street and the blocking of views. The second speaker was Ms Melissa Natai, who also raised concerns in relation to vegetation management on the Esplanade in the vicinity of Halco Street and the blocking of views. That's my verbal report, Mr Mayor.
Is there a mover that council note the verbal report? Councillor Govers, seconded Councillor Whelan. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. With receipt petitions, are there any petitions? Committee reports, 10.1, informal matters, records of matters discussed, pages 3 to 45. Is there a mover that we receive and note? Councillor Burns, seconded Councillor Farage. Any speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.2, the Water and Waste Services Advisory Committee meeting minutes. Is there a mover that we receive note? Councillor Byrne, is there a seconder? Councillor Farage. Any speakers or questions? Can I just ask the director, on page 50, the bit about Member Paul Heaton provided an overview of his observations and comments on the reports, and that there was going to be an efficiency survey for the committee and attendees for completion. Can you just outline what happened with that?
So that, yeah, thank you for the question.
And what his concerns were?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So his concerns were about the volume of information presented to the members, and if that may be able to be streamlined or summarized a little bit better. And the survey was tabled to be discussed at the August advisory committee meeting. Yeah. The survey consists, I believe, of 6 or 7 questions regarding the way the committee operates and the meeting is chaired.
Okay. And do you think that'll make improvements on the committee?
That will, I hope that will happen after discussion with Paul, with the new member, and the rest of the members, that they come to a conclusion which kind of information they want to see a little bit more streamlined.
Yeah, okay. Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.1.1, the councillor meeting attendance for August, pages 52 to 53. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Farage, second Councillor Govers. Any speakers or questions? Put the motion. All in favour? 1, 2, sorry, everyone raise your hand. 3, 4, 9. Oh, sorry, 8. All opposed? 3, that's carried 8-3. Did you get that? 8, that's carried 8-3. Item 11.2.1, pages 54 to 87, the operational plan progress report, April to June. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Truscott, seconded Councillor Farage. Any speakers or questions? Can I go to, for corporate services? Yep. In terms of on page 64, initiative 1.3.3.1, complete Maryborough City Hall restoration, the roof restoration. In terms of this, in terms of is it the air conditioning is the issue? And what, yeah, sorry. That's what's holding it up? We'll replace it, so that we can replace air conditioning while the roof is off? And that's why we're delaying the roof restoration?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, that's my understanding, is that there was a delay in getting the replacement air conditioning, so the team have sequenced the work so that the roof and the air conditioning will be done at the same time.
That's the air conditioning for all the office space there?
Yeah, that's correct.
And the Visitor Information Centre, yeah. And so we'll sequence that, we'll sequence that. So we budgeted the roof this year and the air conditioning?
I'm not sure, Mr. Mayor, sorry, I'd need to check that.
Can I go to,
No, he said that was right. Yeah, that's right.
that'll be, I'll look in the budget. I know the roof is in there. I just don't remember the air conditioning for City Hall being in it. I can find it in the budget. To 71 in Strategy, Community and Development. I just wanted to ask about, so page 71. In terms of the review and refresh the regional event strategy, determining our strategic approach to event acquisition and delivery, and then the next one, deliver economic development strategy that aligns with the 2019 Economic Development Roadmap. Are both of those held up because of graphic design?
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 71, I'm not fully across why they are held up. I don't know whether there is any hold up in relation to graphic design. I'd have to take that on notice if you'd like a response in relation to that one.
Yeah, I would, I prefer swiftness over prettiness. Like if we've got the document ready, it's been through consultation, we've workshopped it, it's ready to go. If we're just waiting for graphic design, especially on something like the regional events strategy, let's just do it. Like, don't worry about graphic design as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, thank you, noted, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any further speakers or questions on this? Councillor Byrne?
Yeah, just, sorry, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in regards to that, the first one, the review and refresh, it does say there that it's not expected to be adopted by council until August, so it's got a little way to go anyway. We're only in July. The other one does say July 2025, so would it be fair to suggest that they just haven't come to us yet or in their final form?
So thank you, Councillor, through you, Mr. Mayor. I could ask that question, if I could, of the Executive Manager who's in the room at the moment.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The event strategy is in its final phase and is due to come back.
Yeah.
So it's virtually done.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm asking. Is the final stage the graphic design?
No, the graphic design has been done, Mayor, doing the final edits, so just making sure everything is correct. There's a couple of photographs that need replacing. Basically, it's finished, so it is due to come back. And the economic development strategy, which I think was the other part to the question, that is in final draft, and that will be distributed back to councillors, I'm hoping within the next 7 to 10 days. And then we are going to go back to the stakeholders that we engaged with, and then it will come back through to council.
So all that done?
All that done.
Any further speakers or questions on this item? It's moved Councillor Truscott, seconded Councillor Farage. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.2.2, request for ergon easement, disposal of interest in land at the Aroween Reservoir site, pages 88 to 90. Councillor Chapman, you're moving this?
Yes, thank you.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Cosgrove? Any speakers or questions?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to clear, just to make it brief here, that this is a 12 metre by 12 metre pad that's at our water at near the hospital, our water reserve there. And there's 3 pumps in this area, and that we need extra energy to, in summer when we're pumping up to Ghost Hill, and we haven't got enough power there, and Ergon Energy need to put a new transformer in. So this is actually upgrading our facilities to get better water supply to Ghost Hill. Thank you.
Any further speakers or questions? With the motion, all in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.2.3, the LGAQ conference motions, pages 91 to 101. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Farage, seconded Councillor Chapman. Any speakers or questions? I'll put the motion, all in favour? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.2.4, the procurement policy review, pages 102 to 118. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Farage, seconder. Councillor Byrne, any speakers or questions?
Just a question of the CEO.
Yep.
Will this make it easier for staff to procure specialised services?
The The simple, straightforward answer is yes.
Thank you.
Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion, all in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.2.5, request for a new lease at McPhee Park Sporting Fields. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Farage, seconded Councillor Whelan. Any speakers or questions? Put the motion, all in favour? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.3.1, the Reef Guardian Councillor nominations, 123 to 125. Is there a mover for this? Councillor O'Keefe, you're moving? Yeah, Councillor O'Keefe. Is there a second? Councillor Whelan. Are there any speakers or questions? I'll put the motion, all in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.4.1, the Bushfire Risk Mitigation Strategy, 126 to 405. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Chapman, seconded Councillor Cosgrove. Any speakers or questions?
Mr.
People
Mayor,
have read the entire thing?
I have to speak on this. This is something that is for safety for people, and it's great that we've actually got an officer with the knowledge that he's actually got on fire management and control with, as he's actually come off Fraser Island from working over there. So Mr. Mayor, I think that this is a must for our community and our region, with people living with residential moving closer to the bush, and so I fully support this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion, all in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Yeah. We'll move to matters and motions on which due notice has been given. On 12.1, I'll move a condolence motion for Lee Booley, that council acknowledges with sadness the passing of Lee Booley and extends its sincere condolences to her family and loved ones. Is there a seconder for this? Councillor Truscott. Thank you. Chairperson Booley was the chairperson of Wide Bay Water when I was first elected in 2012. And it's fair to say that there could not have been any public water utility with a higher reputation than Wide Bay Water. Wide Bay Water was recognized, and it still is. It's descended now as part of the council as a model, a very model for efficiency, quality, standards, and community service to the industry and to the society. And a lot of that had to do with her. She was a respected leader in the water industry, holding key roles on the boards of Sun Water, SEQ Water, and other organizations, where she is forever known throughout the industry for her integrity, insight, and commitment to sustainable water management. Her legacy will be remembered with gratitude, and her contributions to both our council and to others throughout the state and the nation forever appreciated. So I'd ask that we please stand for a moment's silence. Thank you. Item 12.2, Councillor Paul Truscott. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Phil Truscott. Councillor Truscott.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Did you want me to read through this at all?
I think that would help if you, to set the scene, if you wish to, you don't have to.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Thanks, Mr Mayor. So this motion is that council be provided with a report, one that investigating the operational and financial implications of not levying water and sewage utility charges for properties with pre-existing on-site infrastructure that are impacted by the expansion of council's water and sewage infrastructure and service areas. And two, consider in the report options to defer the application of water and sewage utility charges or inclusion of the property in the service area until, one, the property changes ownership, two, a period of 5 years has elapsed since property owners are given notice that their property has access to the council's water and sewage infrastructure, or three, the property owner makes application to connect to the water and sewage infrastructure if less than 5 years since notice was provided. Thanks, Mr Mayor. If I'll speak to this. So this is an issue that's come up from time to time, and particularly in the more regional areas of the Fraser Coast. I guess primarily the southern division, but there'll be some areas in the northern part where properties who have spent, in some cases, upwards of tens of thousands of dollars putting in their own infrastructure for rainwater tanks and on-site sewage treatment systems, and then where someone else, a developer of some nature, comes in and extends council's network, which may then run past their property, and in doing so they are then required to connect to and have an ongoing connection with council's infrastructure, which I'm not opposed to. I just think it would be good to at least get a report in this instance which looks at what might those costs be to council in deferring people being connected, and just giving them a bit of a grace period is the intention to allow them time to consider their options of what they may wish to do, because it's, as I said, it's very expensive, some of these connections where people are putting in their own rainwater tanks and sewerage. And allowing this just gives them a bit of time, because I've had some cases where people finding out that that there is a connection about to go past just from seeing contractors out the front digging and putting in infrastructure. And that might not be all cases, but it has been some. And so I think just giving people as much notice as possible that yes, they will have to eventually connect, there won't be any doubt about that, but to give them that time because they've had to outlay some heavy personal expense for their own network, which that they will be happy with. So just putting it out as an option for now to get a report to provide us with as much information as possible to make an informed decision.
Councillor Truscott?
Yeah, I can, well, actually Councillor Paul Truscott has said a lot of what I was going to say, but I've actually got an exact example of this, of one of my people in Tyro, who the actual council, it was Tyro at the time, made them put in water tanks, which they did, and spent X thousand dollars. And a few years later, very close, then the Fraser Coast Council came along and said, now you've got to pay for water. And that's very unfair when they don't get a warning. So I think the idea is to give them warning that this is going to happen and not retrospective. Thank you.
Councillor Cosgrove?
I have some questions, please, Mr Chair, to the Director. So at the moment, is there a formal or informal notice period that landowners receive from council relating to the rollout of new infrastructure that will trigger new charges on a property owner's rates, in this example, water and sewage utility charges? Do we currently have a formal or informal notice period that they get prior to that happening?
Thank you for the question, through the Chair. No, from Water and Waste Services, we don't notify. I'm also not aware of from other departments if there's an investigation happening. So this is mainly where I see this problem from incidental connections, but we don't provide a notification.
And what would be the impediments to us actually being able to provide pre-notice? Like, surely these things are planned in advance. Can we look at, as part of this report, can we look at how pre-notice can be given in more cases? Because obviously, Councillor Truscott's example of finding out because there's contractors out the front of your house digging a ditch, we can I would hope we can do a little bit better than that. Is there a process that we can look at through this report?
Yeah, yes, again, for you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we can do that. I already started discussions with the team. The only issue is that most of this is developer constructed, and we don't know the exact timing of that happening.
And my last question is, through you, Mr. Chair, do we know of any other jurisdictions that defer charges in the way that's proposed in the motion?
Yes, thank you for the question, and we have reached out to ask this question after I saw this motion. So we started that process to get from other councils how they are handling this kind of collections, and if they do it in a different way and what the advantages and disadvantages are. So we reached out to neighbours and to some councils that may have similar situations.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'll be speaking in favour, but if you want to take if there's any speakers against, happy to.
Are there speakers against or questions?
Questions?
Yeah.
I have a number of concerns around the request being sought here. And so I guess my question to the Director is, will the report be considered by the advisory committee? So they'll consider things like revenue loss, environmental considerations, those kind of things?
Well, thank you for the question, Councillor, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so my initial intentions were to bring it to the advisory committee and possibly also to a councillor briefing to discuss a more standardised way forward and how we want to address this in the best possible way. So it could end up with next to a report to have a council policy or something.
So the report will address environmental concerns, revenue concerns and the like. Do you have a date for the last wastewater strategy adoption that Council made? Do you know when that last strategy was adopted?
Sorry, not off the top of my head.
Mr. Mayor, I will be supporting the motion put forward by Councillor Paul Truscott, but I do have reservations, but I believe that they will be addressed in the report and considered by the advisory committee.
Councillor Cosgrove?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I said, I'll be speaking in favour of the motion. I do have some trepidation around this one, but I had a conversation with Councillor Truscott yesterday, and I think that the intention is honourable. Ultimately, this is about striking the balance between fairness, because people are outlaying money, but also the collective need for a grid to be rolled out and serviced. You'll have plenty of people tell you that they don't use the library, but we're all contributors to the library existing, because simply that's what part of being in a community and a society is. So I'm interested to look at any pressures this would create on the rollout of the grid and the necessity of, being able to financially manage that situation. I do feel as if 5 years post rollout is at this stage an arbitrary starting point, but nonetheless, I'm certainly over the line in terms of exploring this, because I think, as I said, it's moved in the interest of pursuing fairness, and that it does need to be balanced with that the collective nature of council business and maintaining a grid. So I'll be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Any further? Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully support this motion that Councillor Truscott has brought to the council here today. It's a 5-year period that people, if the developer is actually putting infrastructure past their place, if people want to connect to this facility, then it's always there within that 5-year period. I'd like to see that in the report, that because connecting water and sewage to your property actually does add value to your property. But some of these people have spent big money on water, on tanks, on treatment plants and systems, And then, but there is some systems out there that are starting to fail and or have failed. So if these people have got a new system in, they've got 5 years to budget it for, to know that the connection, they've got to put a connection to our system, or then it just gives them a bit of time. So Councillor Truscott, I'm here for you to bring this to the council. Thank you.
Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. The next item is 12.3, condolence motion for Lillian Coyne. This is moved by Councillor Dennis Chapman. Is there a seconder? Councillor Phil Truscott. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The motion expresses its sincere condolences on the passing of Lillian Muriel Coyne, later Brooks, then Coyne, and acknowledges her lifelong contributions to the Fraser Cache region, particularly in Boppel and Tyro communities, through her public service and community involvement, and extends heartfelt sympathy to her family, friends, and all who were privileged to know her. Mr Mayor, I'd like to speak on this motion, please. Good morning, Mayor and councillors. Today I'd like to speak about Lillian Muriel Davies, or as known as Lillian Coyne, a lady who gave so much to her local community over many years. Lillian was born in 1926 at Tanano, near Mackay, and her late passing achieved 99 years of life. Lillian's family moved back to Boppel area not long after where she grew up. Lillian's life wasn't easy back then. They even lived in tents while their father worked building roads between Boppel to Maryborough and surrounding areas. Lillian went to school at Boppel, then attended Ladies High School in Maryborough. After passing her exams, she was employed by the Tyro Shire Council as a junior clerk. In 1945, during World War II, Lillian joined the Women's Royal Australian Navy Service and served on the HMAS Moreton, where she kept very valuable information of her posting in her mind. After the war, she came back to home, worked at the Boppel Post Office, and married Fred Brooks, a returned serviceman. Together they had 4 children. Life brought her great happiness, but also sorrow, losing 2 of her children and her husband. Lillian returned to work at the Tyro Shire Council in 1974 and stayed there until she was retired in 1991, but she never really stopped working. She was always helping out in the community, especially with the Mount Boppel and District Historical Society and the Boppel Museum. She also wrote 3 books about local history that helped tell the story of our region. In 2001, she was awarded the Centenary Federation Medal by the Governor of Queensland, Major General Peter Arneson, and in 2003 presented the Tyro Shire Citizen of the Year Award, which showed her how much her community respected and appreciated her valuable contributions. Lillian was a strong, generous and a proud lady of where she lived. We thank her for everything she gave, and we send her thoughts and condolences to her family.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And could I also have a minute's silence for the passing of Lillian at the end? Thank you.
I'll just ask any other councillors if they wish to speak.
Yes, I'd like to say, Dennis has said it all. Lillian was one that helped me get into this job. As a matter of fact, she was the first person I ever spoke to about this job. She also put me on the right track, what to do. In fact, people said, you go to that area and they say, well, listen, if you want to do this job, you have to talk to Lillian first, which is exactly what I did. Went to her house. She lived across the road from the museum at that stage. And then in later life, I used to visit her and take her places because, she couldn't drive, and to concerts and stuff. And she was she was a very straight lady, but she was always a pleasure to be with, and it was really good because she lived in Granville after that, so it was good. So I agree with Dennis.
Mr Mayor, I know I've spoken, and just wanted to say one thing, that Lillian she was one of the instigators for the Bopple Museum, but the history that she had collected over the years. But it was said at a funeral memory in Torre that the Morton ship that actually served in the World War II they said it went into Brisbane. But the Navy said it never served in Brisbane. It was always out the front and used it for a diving boat for submarines. Anyway, Lillian, someone said, what about we ask Lillian? She'd know, she had a good memory. And they asked Lillian, and Lillian goes, I've got photos, I've got this, I've got that, to prove, and showed him even the tents that they lived in on the Brisbane River, that when the Morton was there, which actually was then able to put a part of in the Maritime Museum in Brisbane of the Morton, because the Navy weren't going to let them put a part up for the Morton in Brisbane. So with her knowledge of knowing what she had, she was just one of those ladies that could remember anything, eh?
And she's a former employee of ours. Yes. Through Tyro Shower, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the 1980s, yeah. Yeah, she was a really remarkable, caring, thoughtful champion. She is somebody who we dearly missed. People haven't seen the oral history that the library did with her. Every second of that video, which goes for more than half an hour, just beams with her bursting with her thoughts on the region, her personality, her kind character, and her deep understanding of the region, particularly Bopple and Tyro. So yeah, a very remarkable lady, will be deeply missed. I'll ask that we now hold a minute of silence. Thank you. Item 12.4, requests for reports relating to Ibis Boulevard connection. This is Councillor Cosgrove in Supplementary Agenda 420. Is there a seconder for this? Councillor Wheeland. Councillor Cosgrove.
Thank you. I might start by reading the motion, if that's okay, Mr Mayor. That Council be provided a report 1 that considers the deferral of the opening of any new connection of Ibis Boulevard between Eli Waters and Point Vernon until the completion of the signalisation upgrade of the Old Maribor Road / Tooth Street intersection. 2, that considers if and when a 4th exit coming from the existing Endeavour Way Ibis Boulevard roundabout is constructed, it be classified as a higher order road similar in width scale to Ibis Boulevard running southeast from this location, and the possibility of council retrospectively pursuing this outcome on any outstanding approvals via negotiation / agreement, including an estimate of additional costs to be incurred by council if this change was implemented. And 3, that provides the latest rationale for proceeding with the connection and opening of Ibis Boulevard between Eli Waters and Point Vernon. In particular, council should recheck DTMR's position, provide any updated traffic data and potential impacts of the connection, examine the ability for the continued completion of a pedestrian connection happening, regardless of a vehicular connection, and any other council or community interest in the connection. Further to providing that rationale, outline and recommend whether the connection should be completed as planned. I will speak to the motion as well, thank you, Mr Chair. So, I often think, certainly have since being in this role, about what acting regionally means, and which is our responsibility legally as 11 individuals. It's a peculiarity, didn't say that word correctly, but the electoral system can often make us feel parochial, and obviously this connection sits in my division, which is why I've raised it. But nonetheless, I think the first filter that I always run things through when acting regionally is budgetary considerations and balancing the range of issues and things that need attention and ultimately funding across the region. But the second filter that I then place over decisions in terms of acting regionally is who is the most affected by this decision. So if I was making a decision that primarily affected the residents of Granville, I wouldn't give a resident of Arroway the same weighting when considering that matter. In this case, I actually have a personal stake in this, and if this connection was made, I would use it in my vehicle. I would definitely use it as an active travel link, and the motion's very clear that that should and will still happen. But I would describe the impact that it would have on me and other residents in the area of Point Vernon, where I live, as being one of mild convenience. It's not absolutely pivotal that this connection opened. It is, as I said, great, mild convenience for my life. But I think the impact that it can have on the essentially cul-de-sac area of Ibis Boulevard and Bushlark and those streets that are in there, they currently live in a cul-de-sac area that's going to become potentially yet another rat run through Eli Waters. And I've spoken on many occasions about the fact that, if you go back in time, you'd make the roads wider, you would do a lot better in terms of planning the road network in Eli Waters. My investigation into this matter, with the help of Executive Manager Coburn, who is obviously a font of knowledge going way back, was that the initial reason for this being conditioned as a vehicular connection was a DTMR condition, where they said, if you don't connect this, it'll adversely impact the state road network, so it has to happen. But at that stage, it was planned to be a golf course and far higher density living building in there, so there was going to be a whole lot more people now. Now it's just standard sort of housing that's gone in there, so it won't be the same density. Look, being realistic, I think DTMR will still hold the same position. They'll still say that we have to connect it. But nonetheless, for the sake of the residents who will be most impacted by essentially living in a cul-de-sac area, as in one way in, one way out, to them being a thoroughfare, at least deserve the respect of us double-checking that requirement, double-checking what the trunk infrastructure is going in there from a council point of view is. I don't think the road actually is considered trunk, but we do have some water connections and the like. But as I said, the initial reasoning behind this connection being made goes back to a DA in 2005. And you can't tell me that things haven't vastly changed over 20 years, that we need to probably reconsider it in a modern context. The last point I would make is I think the most important and most realistic point in this motion is point 1, that asks for a deferral of this connection being opened, even if the infrastructure is completed, by way of bollard, temporary infrastructure, what have you. There is precedent for that. It's been done in Kawungan once again. Good conversation with EM Coburn about the fact that we don't want to condition people to think that this is the best route once OMR 2th Street is upgraded and signalised. That should be the main thoroughfare for people from Point Vernon exiting the area, I suppose, if they're wanting to head to Maryborough or the Eli Waters shops. Of course, people will use this link, but we don't want to, in that roadworks period, condition people to think that, because we are creatures of habit, be driving this and then they never use the lights upgrade that's going to be fantastic when it's done at OMR 2th Street. So that's the thinking. I'm moving this out of respect for the people who will be most affected, who essentially live in, as I said, a cul-de-sac area, and will then be living beside some sort of thoroughfare. And I think it's worth just an investigation, considering it's been 20 years since the condition that triggered this connection was put into an MCU. Thank you.
Are there any speakers against? Councillor Byrne?
I'd actually like to foreshadow an alternative motion to Councillor Cosgrove's motion, if that's possible. And I would like to read, hopefully, these words. You may need a bit of wordsmithing. I'd like it to be referred to a future briefing session to enable councillors to more fully consider the matter and seek advice to council officers and other potentially impacted stakeholders. So my rationale towards that would be that just to give our directors and councillors some time to grab a little bit more information and just to fully understand the intention behind it. I'm happy to have this motion come to the table again at a further point, but just I feel that we need a little bit more time to workshop it.
Yep, is there a speaker in favour? Councillor Chapman?
Mr Mayor, I actually I'd like to speak in favour of the motion of Councillor Burns.
No, a speaker, I'm just calling for a speaker in favour of the motion that Councillor Cosgrove has moved. Is there a speaker in favour? Okay. Councillor Chapman?
So am I speaking in favour?
You can speak however you want. Yeah, it's just whilst there are people speaking forward and backwards, I've got to take turns. I understood that while you're speaking in favour of Councillor Burns' alternate motion, you are speaking against Councillor Cosgrove's motion.
Mr Mayor, I'll speak for Councillor Cosgrove's motion, but what I'd like to do is it's virtually a report. And this is something that the council don't actually handle. It's the engineers of the traffic that actually handle these. And I look at congestion as saying there's going to be congestion problems. Well, when we've got developments growing in areas, and we're not opening up more accesses for those developments to access, that is going to put more congestion on our existing structures that we've got. We've got major problems within this region with growth, with the growth of development and with the infrastructure that we've got for moving transport around our region. And I think that we've got to leave this in the hands of our engineers to look at, and if there's been pathways that have been opened up. Because if we don't open up some of these pathways, it's like this: if you want to go from Elo Waters to Point Vernon, you can go through a way. But if you don't, you've got to go through the intersection near the golf club. So I think that it needs to be left in the hands of our engineers, our transport engineers, to come back with the best solution of what we can do. Thank you.
Any further speakers? Councillor O'Keefe?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I understand my colleague Councillor Cosgrove's reasons for bringing this to council on behalf of his constituents in that suburb. I will not be supporting this motion due to the reason that I feel that rather than it being a request for a report, I see it as written as more of almost a local area traffic management plan and a series of directives. I have concerns that there will be downstream effects that have not been considered in the request as it's written, and I don't believe that I mean, if you look at the report, there's mention in there of a file that you can find on a map. Like, it's quite detailed. It's probably one of the longest requests for a report that I've written in a long time. It needs a lot of consideration of all of the broader impacts of what is being proposed. So I won't be supporting.
Any further speakers or questions? You have a right of reply. Councillor Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Just to briefly touch on Councillor O'Keefe's argument regarding downstream effects of a report, I honestly think that we have next to no idea of the downstream effects of what this vehicular connection will actually do. What's it going to do to North Street and Point Vernon? How many cars will we see move from Murphy Street to North Street, for example? Does it then trigger the need for curb and channel further works, speed, slowing mechanisms and the like? So I really, we don't know how many people will use this connection. It could be very few, it could be a lot. The primary purpose of this motion is to ensure that we don't have a period of conditioning people to think that this is the highest order way to get from Point Vernon to the Eli Waters Shops direction, Maryborough, or some people will make that judgment. I think we need to let people have access to a signalised intersection at OMR and Tooth Street before we then open this connection at the very least. And we need to, as I mentioned, pay respect to the people who are most affected by this. That's how I weight my decision in bringing this forward, and just double check that the state, which I expect they will, still wants to impose this vehicular connection as a state interest on the road network.
Yeah, a question from Councillor Farage.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A question to the Director, just pertaining to Councillor Byrne's friendly amendment that she was proposing, alternate motion that she was proposing. In your opinion, do you think that we could achieve something similar if we were to bring it to a council in executive briefing session? And what would be the estimated timeline, because it's quite detailed, so I'm just looking to understand what would be the estimated timeline for this if it was a report versus if it was spoken about within a briefing session, please.
I guess the question has been directed to you, me, Mr Mayor, or
Yeah.
the report is from the other directorate. It's a planning related matter, but I'm happy to answer the question from my perspective. I think there is value in having this discussion at the briefing session, so we can better understand the impacts from a modelling perspective. So that might lighten the work that the officers have to do later on. But that's my view, but I'll defer to the other director to answer the question.
Yeah, thank you, Director. Through you, Mr Mayor. The situation in relation to free-flowing traffic movements should be considered as a broader part of development strategies. So again, the modelling impacts are a critical part of that, and I think that that's information that should be shared and workshopped, with councillors prior to undertaking a formal report to make any decision in relation to it.
Okay, so I'll put the motion. There's an alternate motion, so if the motion fails, then we deal with the alternate motion that Councillor Byrne has placed there. Yeah, she's foreshadowed the alternate motion, yeah. So she's foreshadowed an alternate motion that if this motion fails, the motion of Councillor Cosgrove fails, we then deal with that. If this motion passes, then we move on to the next agenda item. So I'll put the motion, move Councillor Cosgrove, second Councillor Whelan, all in favour? 4, all opposed? 7. That is lost 4-7. So we'll move to the alternate motion. Is there a second? Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Chapman, do you wish to speak to this?
Certainly, Mr Mayor. As I said just briefly, my rationale is I don't, in essence, disagree with Councillor Cosgrove's motion. I would just like myself to have a little bit more time with the officers to get their point of view and perhaps take it a little bit of a deeper dive and at least have a chance to mull it around the room. Initially, I feel that it makes sense, but I just want to know a little bit more information about it myself. So that's probably my rationale behind it.
Yes, please. We'll just bring the new motion up on the screen so we all got what we're talking about. Yeah, Councillor Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'd like to foreshadow another motion. That is my original motion, but only point 1.
Okay, so this is the motion we're dealing with right now, and we have a foreshadowed motion. The council refers the matter to a future briefing session to enable councillors to fully consider the matter, to seek advice from council officers and other impacted stakeholders. Any further speakers? Councillor Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'll speak against this motion simply because there's timeframes related to what we're dealing with here. There's every chance that this connection could have already been delivered. The current estimate is 7 to 12 months, but I previously had an estimate of the end of last year. So my belief actually is that we'll probably have the delivery of the IMR Tooth Street connection and signalisation probably delivered before the developer delivers this connection, and that the whole thing will be moot. But nonetheless, if it came down to deferring the opening for a couple of months, I think that's worthwhile to try to avoid that that conditioning of behaviour element that I'm really concerned about in terms of this issue. So that's why I would remove points 2 and 3 and foreshadow a motion that was just the first point that seeks to achieve that deferral.
Councillor Truscott?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just wondering about a question for formality, if the mover and seconder of the motion would be open to including the words in it, just for clarity, that it be the council refers the matter of Ibis Boulevard connection, just because it doesn't say what the matter is. And then I wonder if
So hang on a second, so it says then change, add behind matter in the actual resolution?
it doesn't say in the resolution what it is.
Yeah.
I've found in the past, if it doesn't say.
Yeah, so it's self-explanatory. Yeah, so the matter of Ibis Boulevard connection to Point Vernon.
Yeah, I'm happy to accept that.
I'm happy to accept it as second.
The other part I was going to check was, as Councillor Cosgrove just raised, the timeliness of it. I don't know if maybe there should be a time request in this, perhaps that it be brought to an urgent briefing, or I don't know if something like that might help. Just putting that out there, if that might be a consideration.
I have a question to the CEO. Presumably, potentially either motion, I would think that the operational arm of the business, EM Coburn, would probably interact with the developer fairly quickly to say, hey, this is being questioned, and work with them to, potentially see if that 7 to 12 month time frame is still active. Is that would that be a reasonable assumption that conversation would happen shortly after the passing of either of these motions?
Yeah, absolutely. We can ascertain that from the developer.
Any further speakers or questions?
Yes, Mr.
Yeah, Councillor Farage?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to speak in favour of the current motion because I think, obviously from the questions that I asked, that it's important that we get a chance to fully consider the matter and seek advice as necessary, especially on something as important as this. And I thank Councillor Cosgrove for his in-depth analysis and time committed to this issue, because it certainly is extremely important, and this is a connection that has been spoken about for a very, very long time. So if we're going to do it, we should do it right. But yeah, I'll be supporting this motion.
Councillor Truscott?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, just to continue with my point, because I'm happy to support the first one, but I just think with the points that Councillor Cosgrove has raised, and I understand the CEO and staff are probably aware, but just for the sake of clarity, where it says to a future briefing session, could it say like the next immediate possible briefing session, if it is a matter of time, so that we just had a session on Monday cancelled. There's a spot this coming
That'll be a matter for the mover and seconder if they want to change
I just think if it's an important matter of time, then let's address it as soon as possible. Is my thought.
Are you happy to change it to that?
Mr Mayor, can I just...
We just ask, it's up to them if they want to change.
Okay, we've had a speaker in support.
I'm sorry, are you raising a point of order?
I am asking a question.
Yeah.
But I've asked a question,
Process.
it needs to be answered.
So, under the standing orders, so we've had a resolution drafted, then we've had a speaker for that resolution. Does that not mean that you can no longer amend that resolution if
Do you
someone...
want to refer to a section of the standing orders? I don't believe so, but if you're happy to raise it, I don't believe that is in the standing orders, but I'm happy to take a point of order if you want to identify that it is. Often, it is through debate that we do come up with amendments.
I guess it's up to the mover.
Yeah, it is.
Whether or not she accepts it. Yeah.
Well, that was the question that was asked.
Councillor Jack?
As the seconder of this motion, I'd just like to ask the director, who just left the room. Sorry. I was just trying to find out, like, if we said we're actually going to have a forum on Monday, this coming Monday, has the staff got enough time to get information together? That's the question.
Mr Mayor, if I can maybe answer a few of those questions.
Yeah,
if
thank
you're
you, Mr.
indulgent.
Am I allowed
Firstly,
to respond?
Because my question hasn't been answered.
Yeah, and my question was going to be, at what time frame to the director who is
I can
on
respond to
you?
that, Mr Mayor.
Can we arrange this in a reasonable time frame that would satisfy councillor Cosgrove's concerns about time, as well as addressing that small section or small amendment in the resolution that would perhaps seek to get this to the table as soon as possible? Because I agree with councillor Farage, it's a really important topic and nobody wants to rush it, but we do want it done quickly.
So, Mr Mayor, if the mover and seconder are amenable to changing the motion that's currently before us, perhaps I could suggest that they use the words "to the next reasonably practicable briefing session." That allows us to, it identifies that you want to discuss the matter sooner rather than later, but allows us the flexibility to make sure we've got all our ducks in a row before we put in a briefing session. I understand the sense of urgency, and I'm happy to facilitate that.
Yes.
Is that happy with this, the seconder as well? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Councillor Wheeland?
Just, can I propose a friendly amendment, and I don't know if it's going to be accepted or not? And potentially we include that we defer the opening until the briefing session, and then everybody's alleviated, because if it opens in the next few weeks, it's going to be harder to then close it.
Is there any chance of that?
Is there any chance of
I
that?
think it's good, 8, 12 months is,
Okay. All right, I'll take that one off the table.
So can somebody please clarify the motion that we're...
Yeah, we'll just make sure we got it right. Reasonably practicable.
Just
It's on the screen.
I
keep reading it.
Okay,
Are you happy with that?
Yeah.
okay. Any further speakers or questions?
I just want to read it first, that's just, okay.
Just for everybody at home, it's a little bit of clarity for anybody who's watching online, that is the particular resolution that we're voting on today.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like the motion to be put.
So,
Well, I don't have to take that as a
No, you don't.
motion because there's still a lot of discussion.
so, Mr Mayor, just for a point of clarification about my questioning before, just to be very clear, my question was around the process in terms of a speaker for a motion and then the attempt at amending a motion before that speaker had considered it. So will the person who spoke have an opportunity to speak again, or do they want to?
Absolutely. If the motion has changed, yes.
Okay, great.
Any further speakers or questions? No. Did anyone speak against it in the end? No. Okay. Okay, you have right to reply then. Yeah.
Oh, I think we've bantered this around long enough. I'm happy to just go with the motion as it is, no reason to reply.
Just to avoid a possible tie, we'll just wait for Councillor Wheeland. It would just be a real pain.
This is where we put on elevator music.
Yeah, if we have to have a 5-5 vote, not use a casting vote, it's worthwhile just
I'll
waiting.
speak for the motion if you want.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor and colleagues. I'll speak for this motion. I think it will allow us an opportunity to consider both local area traffic matters and the broader environment, the broader traffic environment. It will allow us some time to consider those downstream effects. And there's the time-sensitive element also that has been put into the motion, so it's a well-crafted alternate motion that I think we could all probably have a high confidence in supporting. Thank you.
What's a magician's favourite dog?
Oh, there it is.
Is it a labradoodle?
It's a labracadabra dog.
Yeah, labracadabra.
Okay, so this is the motion we're voting on now. The council refers the matter of Ibis Boulevard connection to the next reasonable practicable briefing session to enable councillors to fully consider the matter, to seek advice from council officers and other impacted stakeholders. If that does not pass, then we move to the foreshadowed motion, which is clause 1 of the previous motion. Everyone understands? If this one passes, then we move on to the next agenda item. I'll put the motion, all in favour. 9, all opposed, 2, that's carried 9-2. Item 12.5, request for report relating to Old Maryborough Road Light Industrial Park settings. This is moved Councillor Cosgrove. Is there a seconder for this? Councillor O'Keefe. Councillor Cosgrove.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. My time hasn't started yet because I'm going to read the motion. That council be provided with a report which allows for engagement with businesses and other stakeholders to evaluate the appropriate regulatory parking settings in the light industrial section of Old Maryborough Road between Beach Road and Picnic Street. The engagement should seek to understand business need and establish the best settings to balance customer turnover versus longer parking and all-day staff parking. 2, that provides recommendations for changes to regulatory parking settings in this locality in order to realise the outcomes of any engagement and better serve business and customer needs. And I'll speak briefly to the motion. Hopefully it's a little more straightforward than the last one. I have run this down through the councillor request system. The response essentially came back, yes, it seems a reasonable request that one business has made to have 3 out of 7 angle parks, that is council infrastructure changed to timed parking to allow turnover within their business. But the response also came back essentially saying that in the interest of fairness and equity, if we're doing that, we probably need to consult on the other, 73 odd council parks along this section of light industrial area of Old Maryborough Road to allow other businesses to, oppose any regulation or ask for things that would benefit their business in terms of turnover. That's what this report is seeking to do. I would welcome councillors questioning officers on what the actual impact of engagement would be. In my mind, fairly minimal. It's probably about a 5-question survey. Pop it up on the engagement hub, drop DL flyers to each of the businesses, let them respond, and then see what they say. And then we can come back with any potential budgetary impacts of that feedback. But look, there's obviously some trepidation around the issues of parking, but parking regulation in its best form should be used to actually benefit business and create turnover where possible. As I said, this is a business owner has contacted me with this request. In the interest of fairness, we should talk to all businesses in that area to see if the parking settings are servicing their needs appropriately. So that's why I've moved this motion. Thank you.
Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion, all in favour. Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. General business, is there any general business? No general business. We'll go to late items, 16.1.1, the organisational performance report, pages 422 to 438. Is there a mover that we receive and note this? Councillor Phil Truscott, is there a seconder? Councillor Wheeland, any speakers or questions? I'll put the motion, all in favour. Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 16.1.2, the Astro Aero Hangar Extension, pages 439 to 441. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Paul Truscott, seconded Councillor Wheeland. Any speakers or questions? I'll put the motion, all in favour. Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 15, confidential. Do we need to move into confidential for discussion? If not, is there a mover for the resolution at 15.1? Councillor Chapman, seconder, and Councillor Farage. Any speakers or questions? If not, I'll put the motion, all in favour. Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Just confirming the CEO that completes the business.
That does, Mr. Mayor.
I will close the meeting at 11:18.
Yeah, you were closest.
No, you were.
No, I said 15, you said 16.
We'll just confirm that
So 23.
Yeah.
live streaming has stopped.
Pretty close.